Hey everyone. Jacques uncovers his wife Isabella's affair with his closest friend, Lorenzo. From devastation to determination, watch as he rebuilds his life, reclaims his dignity, and finds hope for a brighter future. In the gleaming city of Geneva, the lights of the urban sprawl shimmered against the calm waters of Lake Léman. Jacques Fournier had always prided himself on the life he meticulously built. At 39, he was a senior partner at Helvetia Investments, a company synonymous with success and precision. His downtown apartment was the epitome of modern luxury, and his wife, Isabella, was the kind of partner many envied: elegant, poised, and seemingly devoted. Yet, beneath the surface, cracks were forming in this picture-perfect life. Lately, Isabella had been distant. Jacques chalked it up to the pressures of her flourishing career as a gallery curator. But the little signs nagged at him. Whispered phone calls, hurried explanations, and late nights at work events. Despite the unease, Jacques chose to trust her. Their life together had always been built on mutual respect, or so he thought. One Friday evening, Jacques was unwinding after a long day with a glass of aged scotch. The hum of the city provided a comforting backdrop to his quiet routine. His phone buzzed with a message from Isabella. Emergency meeting at the gallery. Don't wait up. Something about the abruptness of her tone unsettled him. But before he could dwell on it, a call came through. The name on the screen made his stomach churn. Lorenzo. Lorenzo De Luca was Jacques' closest friend and trusted colleague at Helvetia Investments. Their bond spanned years of shared victories and challenges. Seeing Lorenzo's name linked to Isabella struck Jacques like a bolt of lightning. The faint laughter from the next room sent a chill through him. When he cautiously approached, Isabella's voice, tinged with flirtation, confirmed his worst fears. We'll meet at the usual spot. Jacques won't suspect a thing. The cold realization settled like a stone in Jacques' chest. For days, he grappled with the implications, oscillating between denial and suspicion. Yet, the truth refused to be ignored. Jacques became a silent observer of his own life. He noted Isabella's movements, her excuses, and the way her phone was always locked now. The woman he once cherished seemed like a stranger. Lorenzo, too, had changed. The camaraderie they shared at work now felt hollow, each interaction laced with Jacques' silent scrutiny. One morning, Jacques returned home earlier than expected after a canceled meeting. The apartment was eerily quiet. He felt an inexplicable pull toward the bedroom. Steeling himself, he opened the door. There they were, Isabella and Lorenzo, entwined on the bed they had once shared as husband and wife. Isabella's melodic laugh, once a source of comfort, now sounded like a cruel mockery. Lorenzo, always so self-assured, froze mid-movement when their eyes met. The tableau of betrayal was complete. Jacques. Isabella's voice cracked as she scrambled to cover herself, her face draining of color. Lorenzo's confident facade faltered as he reached for his clothes, his muscular frame suddenly seeming ridiculous in its vulnerability. Jacques stepped into the room, his presence cold and deliberate. Don't bother, he said icily. Stay right where you are. The weight of his words hung in the air, suffocating them both. Lorenzo's bravado reared its head briefly. You don't want to do something you'll regret, Jacques? Jacques let out a bitter laugh. Regret? That's rich coming from you. He pulled a handgun from his jacket, its presence immediately silencing any further protests. Now, both of you sit tight. In the days that followed, Jacques' actions were calculated, every move a step toward reclaiming control. Confronting Isabella and Lorenzo was only the beginning. He knew revenge would be hollow if it wasn't meticulous and enduring. As he sifted through financial records and correspondence, he uncovered the depth of their betrayal. They had been meeting under his nose for months, using moments of trust as a veil for their deceit. Jacques filed for divorce without hesitation. The legal proceedings were swift, but the public nature of their fallout ensured that Isabella's reputation as a cultured socialite took a severe hit. Lorenzo's image, too, began to crumble as whispers of the affair circulated within their professional circles. Jacques ensured that their betrayal would not just end their relationship but haunt their futures. He played the long game, exposing them subtly but effectively. A leaked photo here, a well-timed rumor there. Jacques dismantled their worlds piece by piece. For him, it wasn't just about retribution but reclaiming the narrative of his life. Jacques had always been a man of control, and now he wielded that control with precision. Isabella and Lorenzo had built their betrayal on the fragile foundation of secrecy. Jacques dismantled it brick by brick. He began with the small, undeniable truths: forwarded emails, calendar overlaps, and photos that spoke volumes without words. Every piece was a blow to the facade they had tried to maintain. At work, Lorenzo was no longer the untouchable golden boy. The whispers about his indiscretions grew louder, turning into open skepticism from their colleagues. Deals he once handled with confidence were now questioned by clients. Jacques made sure his own hands stayed clean, but the chessboard was undoubtedly in his control. For Isabella, the fallout was social. Invitations to the most prestigious galas stopped coming. Friends she once charmed now regarded her with thinly veiled judgment. The art community, so deeply tied to reputation and perception, began to distance itself. Jacques didn't relish her suffering, but he took solace in knowing the consequences of her choices were unavoidable. Still, there was no denying the emptiness that came with it all. The nights were the hardest. Alone in his apartment, Jacques often found himself staring at the city lights, wondering how he had missed the signs. He wasn't driven by hatred, but by the need to understand. What had gone so wrong that two people he trusted most could betray him so deeply? Weeks after the confrontation, Isabella requested a meeting. Jacques reluctantly agreed, choosing a neutral cafe far from their former social haunts. She arrived looking disheveled, her once perfect composure replaced by an air of desperation. "Jacques," she began, her voice trembling. "I need to explain." He raised a hand to stop her. "Explain what? That you made a mockery of our marriage? That you betrayed me with my closest friend?" Her eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't just about Lorenzo. I was lost. I felt invisible in our life, in your success." Jacques leaned back, crossing his arms. "And instead of talking to me, you chose him?" "I don't expect you to forgive me," she admitted. "I just want you to know I'm sorry." Her apology hung in the air, but Jacques felt no relief. Her words didn't erase the hurt or the betrayal. He nodded curtly. "Thank you for saying that. But it changes nothing." As she left, Jacques felt a surprising sense of closure. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was enough to start moving forward. With the divorce behind him, Jacques found himself confronting a life unburdened by betrayal, but also stripped of familiar comforts. Determined to rebuild, he threw himself into his work at Helvetia Investments, not as an escape but as a path to rediscovery. His leadership, once rigid, became innovative, and his colleagues began to see him as a figure of resilience. The firm thrived, and so did Jacques. One evening, as he finalized a complex proposal, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Clara, a journalist he'd met at a networking event weeks earlier. Their initial conversation had been casual but captivating. Clara's wit and genuine curiosity had left a mark on him, stirring emotions he hadn't felt in years. "Just read an article about your company's recent success. You're making waves," the message read. Jacques paused, a rare smile crossing his face. Her acknowledgement felt different from the usual platitudes he received. It felt sincere. He typed a response, hesitated, and then hit send. Perhaps, he thought, this was a sign. A small yet significant step toward something new. For the first time in a long while, the idea of opening himself up to someone felt less like a risk and more like a possibility. Jacques poured himself into his work and personal growth. His once carefully curated life was now being rebuilt on a foundation of resilience. He attended conferences, traveled to broaden his perspectives, and took up painting, a pastime he once thought frivolous but now found liberating. Each stroke of color on the canvas symbolized his determination to reclaim his identity and rediscover his passions. At Helvetia Investments, Jacques became a mentor to younger colleagues, sharing the lessons of resilience and composure he had learned through his ordeal. His leadership style, once seen as exacting, now carried a depth of empathy that inspired loyalty and admiration. Jacques was no longer just a successful professional. He was a respected figure who had weathered life's storms with grace. Clara became a consistent presence in his life, and their conversations were like oxygen to a fire he hadn't realized was still burning. Her curiosity and drive mirrored his own, and they spent hours discussing everything from current events to abstract art. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was the spark of something meaningful, a connection rooted in mutual respect and shared aspirations. Months turned into a year, and the shadows of betrayal began to dissipate. Jacques found himself back at Lake Lehman, standing on the shore where he often reflected during his darkest moments. This time, however, his thoughts weren't clouded by anger or regret. Instead, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Isabella and Lorenzo were distant memories now. He had heard through mutual acquaintances that Lorenzo had left Helvetia Investments, his once promising career in tatters. Isabella had moved abroad, seeking solace in anonymity. Their choices had led them down separate paths of obscurity and regret, while Jacques stood tall, his life richer for the lessons he had learned. As Jacques walked along the lake, Clara joined him. They had come to cherish these quiet moments together, their companionship growing stronger with each passing day. She reached for his hand, and he allowed himself to let go of the remnants of his past, fully embracing the future. "Ready to head back?" Clara asked, her voice breaking the stillness. Jacques nodded, a small smile forming on his lips. More than ready. The man who once believed his life was defined by betrayal now understood its true meaning. Strength wasn't just about surviving the storm. It was about learning to dance in the rain. Jacques Fournier had rebuilt himself, not as the man he used to be, but as someone entirely new, a man of purpose, resilience, and unshakable hope for the journey ahead. If you enjoyed this story of resilience and redemption, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Lost Love Mystery. Your support helps us bring you more heartfelt tales like this one. Have a story of your own? Feel free to share it with us. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned for more stories that touch the soul and remind us of the strength in every heart.